Good morning, lunatics. It's Friday morning as I'm recording this, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Matt Luna Fishing Podcast. I am your host, Matt Luna. Again, thanks for listening to this episode. Before we get started, did anyone see that football game last night? The Steelers and Browns, where Mason Rudolph took his own helmet to the head. Pretty crazy. If you haven't checked it out, it's pretty gnarly. Basically, Mason Rudolph gets tackled, and then one of the Browns guys gets into a scuffle, helmet comes off, Browns guy grabs the helmet, and swings at Mason Rudolph's head and hits him in the head. Pretty gnarly, pretty out of control, crazy end of that football game. I actually didn't catch that end live, but I did see it on the news this morning, and it was pretty intense for football. It's one thing to get into a brawl and stuff like that, but to take a helmet off and then swing it at the guy's head, like, that's a weapon at that point. That could be considered a crime. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of punishment gets doled out for that. All right, so switching gears and back to the podcast, back to fishing. And before we get started, I wanted to mention to you guys, if you're new to the podcast or if you haven't listened before, you found me on one of the podcast platforms, you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. My Instagram is Matt Luna Fishing, Facebook, Matt Luna Fishing, TikTok, Matt Luna Fishing _ at the end, and then Matt Luna Fishing on YouTube as well. I'd love it if you check out those different social media channels and subscribe, follow, whatever it is for that particular platform. Please do that. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, let's get a conversation going on what you think of the podcast so far, what you've tuned in, what you like, what you don't like, and see what we can do to make this thing better. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast, share it out, tag me in it, and then I will share it as well. I really want to grow the podcast, and I need your help to do that. Also, if you're on iTunes or on Apple Podcasts, go leave a review. You just got to search Matt Luna Fishing, find the podcast, then leave a review. It helps me get found by more people, so I really appreciate it if you guys go and do that. So for those of you that do follow me on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, whatever, be on the lookout for a giveaway that I'm going to have going here pretty soon. I'm partnering with a company called Reeler Shield. They are a sunscreen company, and I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away some sticks of their sunscreen and then some tackle as well in the giveaway. And I have some discount codes as well that I'm going to put in the show notes for you guys to take advantage of if you want to go buy some of the sunscreen. I'm really looking forward to doing this giveaway and doing some promotion for them. And I hope you guys have a need for the sunscreen. I know it's November and it's not the sunniest time of the year, the warmest time of the year, but this stuff's gonna last you forever. So get it while you can get that discount. You know, you could get it for some other people as well. Great stocking stuffer. It's a smaller stick, and it'll be great for a stocking stuffer, for a little gift for the holidays. So check out the show notes to get those discount codes and stay looking for the giveaway that I'm gonna have going. I just got to edit some content in order to get it out and post it up on Instagram and stuff. And it's basically going to be like a follow me, follow them, and tag somebody in the post kind of a giveaway on Instagram. And yeah, so be on the lookout for that. And if you don't see it or you miss it and it hasn't shown up to you by, I'd say, Monday, then get a hold of me and I could probably send you a link to the specific post so you can get in on the giveaway. So I've been listening to some other podcasts. I really like Bass Talk Live. I like Luke Duncan's podcast, and the MLF FLW thing just keeps rearing its head. It's just a constant topic, and it's just interesting to see what some people are doing. There's already people that are making decisions to leave the FLW tour, and they are going to go fish the Bass Opens and try to make the Bass Elite Series. And they're doing that because they don't want to fish a AAA series. Their logic is that if FLW is basically being positioned as a AAA series, and essentially the Bass Opens are a AAA series as well, why not go fish the Opens and take that stepping stone to get to the Elite Series instead of, all of a sudden being bumped down to AAA? So it's just interesting to see, what some of the actual fishermen have to say about it, and what decision making is going into it for them. And I know it's affecting sponsorships as well, because if you all of a sudden, are a baseball player and you're playing in the MLB and you get knocked down to AAA and you have endorsements with different companies, they're probably not going to stick with those endorsements because you don't have the exposure that you had before. And that's sad that's what happened for those FLW Tour guys. And guys like Brian Thrift, Scott Martin, they just have the following, they have the name recognition, they have the resume, that stuff's not going to probably affect them very much. But if they have no interest in fishing the MLF format and going to the Bass Pro Tour, they have a decision to make as well, because if they don't want to fish that format and they got to pay $40,000 in entry fees, are they going to go try and make the Elite Series through the Bass Opens? It's going to be interesting to see what happens this off season with a lot of the FLW Tour guys. A lot of guys will stay because they want to go fish. They're going to pay that $40,000 to fish that series, and they're going to do what they have to do to fish. And I think that's fine, and that's their decision. But I think it's going to be surprising to see what some of the other guys do in order to maybe switch trails and try to go fish the Elite Series. It seems like that's going to be the most consistent series. I have a feeling that there's going to be more changes that happen. I mean, anytime a company gets bought by another company, there's going to be changes. There's going to be, essentially, I guess, like a learning curve to figure out what the new ownership wants that specific thing or that specific organization, or in this case, that specific trail and tour is going to look like, how they want it to function, what they're going to make those guys do. And in my last podcast, we already talked about how they're, changing some of the jersey space and different jersey requirements and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see what names leave the FLW Tour and go fish elsewhere. So there's going to be another new tour that's coming to us in 2021. They're starting to announce that they're going to be, having this tour in 2021. And I believe it's called the National Professional Fishing League, I think is the name they're going with. And basically, there's going to be no qualifications. You have to submit a resume to get into that tour. And I want to say it's like a $5,000 entry fee. I think they're going to have 6 tournaments. So that, that's going to be $30,000. I don't think they have a schedule yet, but it sounds like there's going to be some national traveling that goes into it. So that's going to bump your costs up pretty good as well. So it'll be interesting to see if any of the FLW Tour guys jump on that, because they can just, roll into that and, put their resume in. And I would imagine that if you're fishing at a national tour already, they're going to accept you into this new league, because there's a supposedly like 30 guys that have already put resumes in that are interested in fishing this league. They're trying to position it as like a working man's league. Whatever that means, I don't know exactly, because a working guy is going to have a hard time just coming up with $30,000 to travel around and fish. From what I recall, they're going to do 1 in 3 payouts, so that's not a lot of payout spots. That brings the payout structure up for those that get checks, but a lot of tournaments do a 1 in 5 payout. So basically that means, if you have 100 competitors and a 1 in 5 payout, you're going to pay out 20 spots. 20 times 5 is 100. Basically, that's a lot of cost for not a lot of checks, is basically what I'm trying to say. So those guys got to be confident that they're going to be able to go out and finish, in that top percent in order to cash checks, because that's a lot of money. That's going to be a lot of money in travel for these guys to come up with, and depending on what the marketing exposure that the trail is going to provide is going to depend upon guys getting sponsorship dollars. But they're also going to be competing against, MLF pros, FLW Tour pros, Bass Elite Series guys, Opens guys, Costas guys, and then just the average high school teams and college teams and stuff like that. So there's going to be even more people trying to get their hands on some of those sponsorship dollars. So there's going to be a lot of competition going into getting sponsorships, and getting money from fishing sponsors is difficult. It's not easy to do, and even non-endemic are really difficult to get money from, because you have to show that you can sell product. It's not just about, hey, I'm gonna go fish, like, pay me money. It doesn't work that way, and it's gonna be tough, unless they can figure out a way to get their fishermen from this new league in front of a lot of eyes. These fishermen are gonna have a hard time getting sponsors and have a hard time coming up with that $30,000 to just go fishing. And that's not gas money, that's not tackle money, that's not travel money, hotel money, food money. That's just to go enter the tournament, and then there's a lot of costs that go along with it. So that's going to be an uphill battle for these guys. And from what I recall, also, they're going to cap the entries at 125 competitors. So that's a decent sized field, but nothing too gigantic. But 125 working guys coming up with $30,000 to $60,000 once you're all said and done with travel and all the other expenses it might be pretty tough. So if you're a fan of bass fishing and you like to think about, all the different fishermen and where they're going to go fish and what trails they're going to fish, it's a pretty exciting time in fishing. There's a lot of stuff that you can follow. A lot of trails have live stream weigh-ins. A lot of trails have different content that they put out. So if you're a bass fishing fan, there's a lot for you to take in from, FLW Tour pros, MLF pros, Bass Elite pros, different social media people, YouTube people. There's a lot of content, so being a bass fishing fan right now is great. I think if you're someone that's trying to make a living in the industry, it can be a little bit of a daunting time, because there's so many people trying to go fish all the same stuff, essentially, that coming up with sponsors and coming up with paying sponsors that are going to help you offset these costs is very tough. And from some different things I've learned over time, a lot of it seems like it's about what you know, or not what you know, that's a factor, but more who you know, what relationships you have, what ins you have to get into whatever company in order to get that sponsorship dollar. Because sponsorships aren't easy. Getting a 50% or 20% discount does not go very far in terms of paying professional level entry fees. Like, don't get me wrong, like, they help, because if you can get discounts on baits and tackle and stuff like that, that's gonna help, but that's not paying your entry fee. My end goal is to try to fish professionally. My hope is that I can fish on one of the, top level tournament trails at some point. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but I'm still wanting to fish professionally. Maybe that's through developing an audience on social media, YouTube, all those different platforms, and being able to make a living off of selling products or selling other people's products and sponsorships and stuff like that. Like, maybe that's how I do it. Maybe it segues into a TV show at some point. Like, who knows? I know that TV and online stuff, like with Netflix and different like Hulu and all those different online, basically streaming services, I think there's going to be some opportunities in the future for different people to have shows on different online television companies, so to speak. So who knows what could happen. All you need is the one person to see you and give you that opportunity, and that could change your life. And what I'm trying to pay attention to is trying to figure out what my best avenue, what my best approach is to try to achieve these goals and these dreams. I got to pay attention to what's going on. Is fishing the FLW Costa Series the best decision at this point? Because it only leads to the FLW Tour and then hopefully the Bass Pro Tour at some point. Like, I don't know. The Bass Opens really aren't an option for me, because they only have the Central and Eastern divisions right now, and basically it's all back east. I mean, they were calling the Central division pretty much from Florida to New York. That's not very central, for the nation. That's pretty much an Eastern tour. And I think the Eastern tour is a lot of like Texas and Alabama, from what I understand. I could have that backwards, but nevertheless, I live in California, so any of those events are really, really far away, and it's just not feasible to do. So I don't exactly know what I'm gonna do going forward. I know that this year in 2020, or this upcoming year in 2020, my fishing is gonna be much more localized than it was the past few years. I know for a fact I'm going to fish the 2020 US Open, but anything Other than that, is kind of up in the air. If it's going to happen, I definitely am going to need some sponsor support for that. Otherwise, I'm just going to be fishing locally and maybe trying to get out of town for, a couple trips or something like that, but it's not going to be for a tournament just because of the cost. Like, I need that sponsorship help at this point in order for me to be able to financially go out and do that. I hope that at some point, Bass ends up having some Western Opens again, because right now there's none. Like, there's nothing for a Western guy in Southern California especially to fish that's associated with bass that could lead to a Bassmaster Classic opportunity or an Elite Series bid. It's just, you'd have to uproot your entire family and go live in Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, wherever, and then go fish. And it may not happen, and you may not have family anywhere, and it's from what I understand, it's very hard to get back to California once you leave because it's just so expensive out here. And that's a lot to ask of a guy to uproot their family and move to halfway across the country in order to go fishing. And I just don't think that that's something that's in the cards for me. And I don't even know that I want to move just to go fish. There might be other reasons that would be beneficial to move, but at this point, I'm staying put. So my hope is that some more opportunities, maybe some other trails, come out this way and give us even more opportunities to go fish out west. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's podcast episode. I really appreciate you guys listening to this episode. Again, you can contact me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, or on email. My email is mattlunafishing@gmail.com. You can send me an email there. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave a comment and like the video. If you're new to my podcast and you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe. If you're an Apple Podcast or iTunes listener, please go leave a review. It really helps me get found by more people, and I really want to grow the podcast. I really appreciate it. And be on the lookout for those giveaways and discount codes that I have coming your way. So again, thanks for listening to the Matt Luna Fishing Podcast, and I will talk to you guys next time. See ya.